in the heart of the Syrian desert, where the sands of time have buried countless empires, one city rose to defy the mightiest power the world had ever known. This is the story of Palmyra, the jewel of the East, and its warrior queen, Zenobia, a woman whose ambition, intelligence, and courage forged an empire and challenged Rome itself. Our story begins in the 3rd century AD, a period of chaos for the Roman Empire, racked by civil wars, economic collapse, and constant threats on its borders. The so-called crisis of the 3rd century left a power vacuum in its vast eastern provinces. In this crucible of uncertainty, the oasis city of Palmyra thrived, located at a crucial crossroads of trade routes, linking the Roman world with Persia, India, and China. Palmyra was a melting pot of cultures, ideas, and immense wealth. Its streets, lined with magnificent colonnades, grand temples, and soaring arches, were a testament to its prosperity, a blend of Greco-Roman architecture and unique Eastern artistry. Caravans laden with silks, spices, and precious jewels passed through its gates, enriching its coffers and turning its merchants into princes. At the head of this city-state was Odenathus, a powerful Palmyran noble who had proven himself a loyal and effective ally of Rome. He had successfully defended the eastern frontier against the Sassanid Persians, earning him titles and respect from the Roman emperor. By his side was his second wife, Julia Aurelia Zenobia. Born into a prominent Palmyrene family, Zenobia was no ordinary noblewoman. Ancient sources describe her as possessing striking beauty, with dark, flashing eyes and a commanding presence. But it was her intellect that truly set her apart. She was fluent in several languages, including Palmyrene, Aramaic, Greek, and Egyptian, and had a deep knowledge of history, philosophy, and politics. She was said to have traced her lineage back to Cleopatra and Dido of Carthage, legendary queens who had also dared to stand against the powers of their time. Zenobia was not content to live in her husband's shadow. She was his partner, his advisor, and a formidable force in her own right. She often accompanied him on his military campaigns, riding alongside her soldiers, sharing their hardships, and earning their loyalty and admiration. In the year 267 AD, tragedy struck. Odenathus and his eldest son were assassinated, under circumstances that remain shrouded in mystery to this day. Some historians point to a family feud. Others whisper of a Roman plot to remove a leader who was becoming too powerful. Whatever the cause, the future of Palmyra hung in the balance. But in this moment of crisis, Zenobia did not falter. With her infant son, Vabalathus, as the rightful heir, she stepped forward to seize the reins of power, not merely as a grieving widow, but as a regent with a vision. She declared herself Queen of Palmyra, a title that no Palmyran ruler before her had dared to claim. This was a direct challenge to the established order, a declaration of independence in all but name. Zenobia's court became a center of learning and culture, attracting scholars and philosophers from across the known world, but her ambitions extended far beyond the walls of her city. She knew that Palmyra's wealth and survival depended on controlling the trade routes that were its lifeblood. To secure them, she needed an empire. With breathtaking speed, Zenobia launched a series of brilliant military campaigns. She was a master strategist, leading her armies with a combination of tactical genius and personal bravery. Her forces, a mix of heavy cataphract cavalry, skilled archers, and disciplined legionaries, were loyal and battle-hardened. First, she marched south, annexing the Roman province of Arabia. Then, her most audacious move, the invasion of Egypt. This was not just a strategic conquest, it was a personal one. Egypt was the land of her ancestor, Cleopatra, and a vital source of grain for the entire Roman Empire. In 270 AD, her general Zabdas swept into the province, overwhelming the Roman garrisons. By conquering Egypt, Zenobia had seized control of one of Rome's most precious assets and dealt a severe blow to its authority and economy. Her empire now stretched from modern-day Turkey to Egypt, a vast and powerful kingdom carved out of Rome's eastern territories. On coins minted in Antioch and Alexandria, her son Vabalathus was depicted alongside the Roman emperor. But it was Zenobia's image that dominated her titles, growing ever more grandiose. She was no longer just a regent. She was Empress of the East, Back in Rome, a new emperor had risen from the chaos, Lucius Domitius. Aurelianus, known simply as Aurelianus, was a hardened soldier, a brilliant general, and a man utterly determined to restore the fractured Roman Empire to its former glory. He had crushed rebellions in the West and now turned his gaze eastward, to the upstart queen who dared to defy him. For Aurelian, Zenobia's Independent Empire was an intolerable affront to Roman honor and a direct threat to the stability of the state. He could not, and would not, allow it to stand. The stage was set for an epic confrontation, a clash between two of the most formidable leaders of the age. In 272 AD, Aurelian assembled his legions and marched east. He was a master of logistics and warfare, and his advance was relentless. City after city that had sworn allegiance to Zenobia now opened its gates to the Roman emperor. The first major clash occurred at the Battle of Amay, near Antioch. Zenobia's heavy cataphract cavalry, her greatest strength, was initially successful. But Aurelian used a clever tactic. He feigned a retreat, luring the heavily armored Palmyrene horsemen into a long, exhausting pursuit under the hot sun. Once the Palmyrens and their horses were spent, Aurelian's rested cavalry turned and counterattacked, shattering their formation. A similar scene played out at the Battle of Emesa. Despite fighting with fierce courage, Zenobia's forces were again outmaneuvered and defeated by Aurelian's superior strategy. Her armies broken, Zenobia had no choice but to retreat to her last and greatest stronghold, the magnificent city of Palmyra itself. She fortified the city, confident that its strong walls and desert location would hold off the Roman siege. She believed that the vast desert surrounding her capital would exhaust the Roman supply lines, and that her archers would decimate any who dared approach the walls. For a time, it seemed she might be right. The Romans suffered from the heat, a lack of supplies, and constant harassment from Palmyrene raiding parties. Aurelian himself was wounded during the siege, yet the emperor's resolve never wavered. He cut off Palmyra's supply routes and methodically tightened his grip on the city. Seeing that the situation was hopeless, Zenobia made a desperate gamble. Under the cover of darkness, she slipped out of the besieged city on her fastest camel, racing towards the Euphrates River. Her plan was to reach Persia and seek aid from Rome's old enemies, the Sassanids, to raise a new army and continue the fight. But Roman patrols were everywhere. She was captured just as she reached the banks of the river, her desperate bid for freedom a failure. With their queen captured, the will of Palmyra's defenders broke. The city surrendered to Aurelian. The emperor, initially, was lenient. He spared the city from destruction, garrisoned it with Roman troops, and began his journey back to Rome, taking Zenobia and her vast treasure with him. But the proud people of Palmyra could not stomach Roman rule. They rose in rebellion once more, slaughtering the Roman garrison. Aurelian's response was swift and brutal. He turned his army around, marched back across the desert, and peacetime showed no mercy. The great city of Palmyra was sacked and utterly destroyed. Its magnificent buildings were torn down, its wealth was plundered, and its people were put to the sword. The jewel of the desert was reduced to a ruin, a ghost of its former glory. And what of Zenobia? Her ultimate fate is a subject of historical debate. One account claims she starved herself to death out of grief and defiance on the journey to Rome. But the more widely accepted version is that she was brought to the capital to be paraded in Aurelian's spectacular triumph, adorned in magnificent jewels and bound by golden chains. She was forced to walk before the emperor's chariot, a symbol of his victory in the restoration of the empire. After the triumph, Aurelian, perhaps impressed by her spirit, spared her life. He granted her a villa in Tivoli, near Rome, where she lived out the rest of her days in comfortable exile. Her children are said to have married into the Roman nobility, their lineage merging with the very empire their mother had so fiercely fought. Zenobia's reign was brief, a brilliant flash of defiance in a century of turmoil. For a few short years, she ruled an empire, challenged the might of Rome, and carved her name into the annals of history. She was a scholar, a diplomat, a general, and a queen who dared to dream of a world where power resided not in Rome, but in her own magnificent desert capital. Though her empire crumbled and her city fell to ruin, the story of Zenobia the warrior queen of Palmyra, endures a timeless testament to courage, ambition, and the indomitable will to rule. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the past. If you enjoyed this documentary, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories from history.